Welcome to another edition of the Red Zone podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Pointe-de-Jure, and today we are going to be breaking down the massive win by the Calgary Stampeders over the BC Lions 25 to 24. Very close one throughout, and then Calgary made some plays near the end of the fourth quarter to seal away the victory. And we got to start with Jake Maier having a great game, probably the best performance this season. 25 of 32, 307, three touchdowns, zero interceptions, and that's what we want from Jake Maier. Is efficient. You get a bunch of yards, you get touchdowns, because there's been too many points this season where it's been peaks and there's been very, very big valleys. We do not need these like very big valleys that he has kind of shown us this year. We need the consistency and him putting these good games together if we want a chance to go far, especially in the playoffs. And we're going to have to face this BC team later on. So keeping consistency is very, very key. To the rushing game, Dedrick Mills, 14 carries for 48 yards. Not getting many yards on first down, maybe one, two. The running game has not been there overall this season. Just the gaps have not been there for Dedrick Mills to run through. But, I mean, look, 14 carries. You got to keep giving him the ball because he's a good running back. It's just we need to find, ways to run it effectively and not just 1 to 2 yard gains every time. Receiving, you had Jalen Philpott, our leading receiver, 6 receptions, 79 yards, one touchdown, and that touchdown. Oh man, what a touchdown that was. Keeping the foot in bounds by inches, literally by inches, mere inches, to keep it in bounds, and it was ruled a touchdown. Great catch. Overall, just a great touchdown by Jalen Philpott. What a way to get your first touchdown of the year. Clark Barnes, 3 for 63 and a touchdown. Reggie Bagleton, 7 for 52 and a touchdown. Marken Michelle, 4 for 46. Cole Tucker, 2 for 34. And Dedrick Mills, 3 for 33. So really slinging the ball everywhere across the field, not just to one guy, but to multiple. I mean, 6 receptions, 3 receptions, 7 receptions, 4 receptions, 2 receptions, 3 receptions. I mean, just all over the field. Jake Maier was completing passes, and that's what you like to see. Not just one guy, but everyone getting involved in the offense. Overall, offensively, I thought it was a clean, good game. Outside of one play, I think late in the game where Jalen Philpott, the ball, he kind of fumbled it, and then BC recovered, but not fully. Seontae Evans had it and then kind of bobbled it, and then Jalen Philpott was able to recover. It was Calgary's ball, and they would seal out the game from there. But whew, that was a scary, tense moment right there. But we were able to come out with the victory. Let's get to the defensive side of the ball and the interceptions starting to pile up. This is what you want to see is the defense getting interceptions, not the offense throwing them, but the defense, picking the ball off. And Tyler Richardson, a guy who replaced Demario Houston, who was on the 6 game and then back at practice and then on the 1 game, just I think precautionary. And Tyler Richardson subbed in for him and did a really good job getting an interception on the sidelines. It was a really nice one. He kind of jumped up for it and got it. And then Kobe Williams right in front of McInnes jumping it. And it was an inside in route. And he kind of just jumped it and got the pick with about, I think, 3 minutes to go. So that was really, really nice to see that we're piling these up. I think 6 interceptions through the last 3 games. So you love to see it. And Vernon Adams only threw 2 interceptions, but it probably should have been more. And I'll tell you a stat line: 17 for 31, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And it is a far cry from what he has been doing the last, 6, 7 weeks of the season. Just very, very low uncharacteristic numbers for VA. And two interceptions, as I said, probably should have been more, because you had one that was a screen pass that defensive lineman had it in his hands. I forget who it was, but he had it and just popped up in the air, and William Stanback caught it. And then you had another one that was another screen pass, and it went right through the hands of Trey Roberson, and he dropped it. So that's four on the night that, could have been interceptions, but ended up with two. And Vernon Adams having a very shaky day, not a great day for the MOP candidate, the front runner for most outstanding player. The running game, William Stanback, 9 carries for 64 yards. They should have probably went back to the running game a lot more than they did, but unfortunately only 64 yards for William Stanback. He was finding good holes to run through, but they didn't go back to him in that second half. Vernon Adams' two big receiving weapons in Justin McInnis and Alexander Hollins, they were kept in check. Combined 4 receptions for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. So you really, really held those two monsters of receivers in check and were able to defend them as well. Like the best, probably, that anybody has been able to defend them in the last 7 weeks. So, not an MOP type performance by VA. You kind of get a slumpy performance by BC that, a lot of turnovers and a lot of penalties. And overall, by both teams, there were a ton of penalties. I think 11 for BC and 12 for Calgary. So just tons and tons and tons of penalties. Some that were questionable and probably the referees should have kept in their pockets, and some that were really warranted as a result of this many penalties. I mean, some of them were, right, but I think a lot of them the refs should have probably held in their pockets. But overall, you won't complain, because the Calgary Stampeders won this game, and they won the fourth quarter only by 1, 8-7, but they won it, and their defense really performed well after a couple weeks of really struggling, allowing a ton of passing yards, allowing a ton of touchdowns. And this game, they're really able to hold the MOP front runner in check for the majority, if not the entirety, of the game, and really getting pressure on him. Even got a sack on him, which is great to see. Let's get to our preview of our next game against the Ottawa Redblacks. In Ottawa, no step over. I mean, they have been playing very good football on both sides of the ball. Drew Brown, not amazing, but he's doing what he has to do to get wins, and they are sitting now at 4-2, good for second, I think, in the East Division. And it's going to be a tough game. It's in Ottawa. It's at their place. You're playing against a very good defense that has a Darius Pickett, and can force turnovers, as you've seen in the last few weeks, and an offense that, can get points. I mean, they have Dominique Rhymes, and Dominique Rhymes has been a killer against the Calgary defense. So hopefully we can contain him, because he's had some very, very, very good performances against the Stampeders, as we've seen with BC. But it's going to be a very tough game. I think low scoring. All these games between Ottawa and Calgary are very, very tight, even going back to, the Grey Cup years where Calgary was winning. They've been very, very close games, and I expect the same. It's going to come down to that fourth quarter. It's going to come down to who can execute better in that fourth, and hopefully Calgary can pull it out and get a win in Ottawa. But that will do it for this edition of the Red Zone podcast. I hope you enjoyed the Nathan Rourke Throwback Thursday series episode. Has been doing really good in terms of views, the highest by far. it was like number one. It reached the number one spot in terms of views, I think, a week ago, and it's just crushing it. 192 the last time I checked. So let's get that up to 200, and I'm definitely going to make a second episode because that first episode was so successful. So thank you for, tuning in to that first initial episode, and I will be making a second one. Don't worry about that. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Red Zone podcast. Peace.